but the opportunities are there now in abundance. And I do think it's vitally important for people to continue on education as much as they can possibly do.
Hello and welcome to our students, graduates and friends from across the global sports industry. I am Ray Boggiano of University Campus of Football Business and its Global Institute of Sport. And we're joined by a very special guest today, thanks to our partnership with the League Managers Association. And to briefly introduce him, he won successive European Cups under the legendary Brian Clough, and also captained Northern Ireland at the 1982 World Cup. Since hanging up his boots, he's gone on to manage the likes of Leicester City, Celtic, Aston Villa, Sunderland, Nottingham Forest, and Republic of Ireland. So welcome, and thank you very much for joining us, Martin O'Neill.
Hello, Ray. Are you okay?
All good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great stuff. So let's start by putting you on the spot, if you could pick out a highlight of your career, and bearing in mind, I think it's fair to say that you've had a pretty successful career as a player and as a manager, whether that's winning 2 European Cups as a player, or winning the domestic cup treble in your first season as Celtic manager, or even getting Wycombe Wanderers up into the Football League, or Leicester City up into the Premier League. Are there any highlights in amongst all of that, or anything that I haven't mentioned that sticks out for you?
No, I think you've covered them. Is there one thing in particular, just on the playing side? As I was growing up, obviously, I watched the great Real Madrid teams winning the European Cup. Then in the late 60s, Celtic won the first British team to win the European Cup. And then Manchester United did it the following year with George Best, who obviously grew up in Northern Ireland. So all of those things. So perhaps winning the European Cup is a very, very big highlight in anyone's career. And for Nottingham Forest, a provincial club, to do it twice, I think there was just was pretty outstanding. We obviously had an outstanding manager. We had outstanding players, and so those were great moments. I missed out in the first final through injury. I'd been injured about 3 weeks before that, and so I played in the second final. Though I played a lot of games in both years. But I think that day of actually winning in 1980 against Hamburg and holding on to the medal was something that's really an unforgettable moment. And of course, to do that in those days, you had to win. You had to win your league. So us winning the championship, having coming up from straight up from the old, what is called the second division, what is called now the championship, to win the Premier League at the first time of asking, was pretty extraordinary. So those were great days indeed. And that was at club level. And you mentioned international level, being captain of the 1982 World Cup team, Northern Ireland and Spain. When we beat Spain, the host nation, to get to the quarterfinals of the World Cup, was a pretty special night as well too. So I've had a thoroughly good time. I've been spoiled really in many aspects, and I've been privileged to play the game in that aspect. And then in terms of managerial things, you've mentioned a number of highlights that it is very difficult, because at the time getting promotion with Wycombe Wanderers, winning the FA trophy with them, was as important a moment as any at that particular stage in my time. And obviously the treble at Celtic, moments at Leicester, when not only did we get the promotion, but we won the League Cup twice. I enjoyed it, and Aston Villa's days were terrific. So I've been really privileged, Ray, in that sense, genuinely privileged to have played the game and actually managed.
Fantastic, and we'll come back to your playing career in a little while, but just want to touch on you mentioned Wycombe there, and we had Gareth Ainsworth in on our Insight series recently, and he said that you laid the foundations for their current success. when you were there then, did you think that they had the potential to go as far as they have done recently and get as high as the Championship?
Well, I thought that, when I went to Wycombe Wanderers, first of all, it was about 1990. They were just moving from an old stadium called Lokes Park, which is a big sloping ground, or sloping pitch, I should say, to a brand new stadium called Adams Park, where they're ensconced now at the moment. And so I oversaw the changes that took place over a couple of months. And so for us to move to the new stadium and getting crowds of 5,000-6,000 people into Vauxhall Conference matches. At that stage, that's the one league below the league itself, were terrific. And then when we took the team to Wembley a couple of times, the crowds that we got, I thought that definitely Wycombe had the potential and to be able to go up the leagues. But Gareth has taken it now. They've taken it into the Championship. That's the highest they've ever been. The achievement under him has been fantastic. He's worked with a very, very low budget. He's got a great spirit, akin, I think, to the spirit that was created during my time there as well. And that's great credit to the manager himself. And he has created that, so much so that he actually invited me down through text message down to their first game. And I went to that match on Saturday to watch them. They played Rotherham. Unfortunately lost in that very, very last minute of the game, and that was a real blow. But the job he's done there, did I lay the foundations? Yeah, I'd like to think that our journey into the Football League, where they have stayed ever since, has been terrific. Taking it into the Championship is a terrific step, and one that he deserves great credit for.
Absolutely, and moving forward to your days at Celtic, you won your first Old Firm 6-2 against Rangers, which is certainly one way of getting the fans on side. What is it like to manage in that fixture? Well,
that certainly was. It was a big moment for us, Ray. A really big moment, and just almost in every capacity, not just the game itself, which was very important. And we had the previous year, before going up there, Celtic had been well and truly hammered in the league by Rangers, and Rangers were unbelievably strong at the time. They were going into the Champions League with aspirations of doing brilliantly in that, and we had a bit of a thing to turn around. But so that first game was, I think it was my sixth match in charge. It's one that the winning of the game gave us some confidence to keep going for the season. Thankfully, we won the league. But not just that, it was the manner of the game. We'd scored 3 goals in the first 11 minutes. And if you can imagine Celtic Park with 60,000 people, of course, 54,000 at that particular time were Celtic fans, and they were allowing, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 Rangers fans into the ground. The atmosphere was, I know it's the old cliched phrase, unbelievably electric. It was phenomenal. So we got off to a really great start, but your heart's in your mouth throughout the whole game. And we eventually won 6-2. And it was only in the final, the last couple of minutes of the match, when we scored a 6th goal to make it 6-2, that I thought, we're definitely going to win here. It was like that. And because of the ability that Rangers possessed at that time. But it was a big moment for us. Seminal moment in the aspect that to give us the confidence to keep going, and that we did until the end of the season, and we were able to clinch the league. So yes, from that aspect, great. But to win your first game as well, in front of your own fans, in the manner in which we did that time, was something that I'll treasure for a long time.
And you didn't just win the league, of course. You got the domestic cup treble for Celtic, and then came very close in 2003 to European success as well. You must have been one of, if not the first British managers to face a young Jose Mourinho in the dugout in that final. What are your memories of that match? And did you realise at the time what a talent Jose was?
Well, first of all, no, I didn't do. He was relatively unknown at that particular time. He was managing Porto, they had reached the final themselves, and we had done so. And I thought that it was played in Seville. I'll just give you a little bit of backdrop to it. Played in Seville, and the stadium itself held, I think, about 50,000 people. And we Celtics fans came down in their droves. I think there was about 75,000 people descended in Seville. And so it was obviously disappointing. We lost 3-2, but they went on. Porto were a very, very fine footballing team. They had some great players, as they proved by winning the European Cup the next year. And Josie goes on to become a terrific manager, absolutely. And he's proved himself time and time again. And considering, I think his exploits in the game have been excellent, considering he didn't play. He never was a player, but he sucked in all that information through Bobby Robson at the time, Sir Bobby, and he put it to great use himself, and so his career was star-studded.
And you yourself, you've captained Northern Ireland at a World Cup, and you've managed the Republic of Ireland at the Euros. How do those experiences compare to play and manage in a major international tournament?
Okay, well, I think there are two different aspects to it: one playing and one managing. And I've always had the belief that when I was growing up, I didn't actually set out to become a manager. I set out to become a player. I wanted to be a player because that's what I think the game's about. And when you see the likes of Messi and Ronaldo playing now, and George Best and people like that in their pomp, Johan Cruyff, Eusebio, all the great players, Pele, Maradona, then you think, well, this is really what the football is all about, and so it should be. But managers are very, very important to any football club. They, if you're given enough time, they decide the culture of the club. They decide a lot of things, and of course, and if they are great leaders, they get people to follow them. So all of those things are very, very important. So there are two different aspects to it. The playing was great. To get to the quarterfinals, beating Spain, unforgettable evening in Valencia, fantastic in '82, and but the managing of the Republic of Ireland, getting to the Euros in 2016, and along the way we beat Germany when we had to win the game in the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. We had to win to give ourselves a chance and to beat the world champions that night. We got a little bit of luck along the way, there's no question about that there, but we played with unbelievable faith and spirit, and obviously a game plan of which the players carried out magnificently to get us into the playoffs, to beat Bosnia in a two-legged playoff, and then to participate in the and get to the last 16, beating Italy along the way. Just fantastic memories, obviously, but totally different. Different as a player, you're part of the team. You feel as if you can influence on the field, but as a manager, it's a totally different feeling. And if I'm not articulating it well enough, maybe that's because there is such a difference.
And as a player, I absolutely have to ask you about the European Cups. So you mentioned there you played in the second of the successive European Cup finals for Nottingham Forest. What was that like, and what was it like to play under Brian Clough? Well,
what was it like? It was an experience every single day, and I genuinely mean that. I mean, if this is going out to people who do not know Brian Clough, well, I think that you should go and Google and find out what a character he was. Of course, different days as they were then. A manager had full reign at the football club, whereas perhaps maybe now that there are CEOs, there's the directors of football, there are people where the managers now having to manage upwards, never mind anything else. But Brian Clough essentially owned the football club in that sense. You know, I don't mean literally owned it. I think metaphorically he was in charge of everything. Mesmeric character, no question about it. And so when he took over, success didn't follow immediately. So that's always good news for budding managers. And But when Peter Taylor joined up with him, they renewed their partnership, which had been very successful at Derby, and we took off. We absolutely took off. We got promotion. We won the league. We won 2 European Cups. We won 2 League Cups, and we're playing the World Club Championship all within a period of about 3.5 years. It was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And I heard Graham Souness speaking just recently when asked the question, would this be one of the great achievements in football? And he said, probably is, not just one of the greatest, maybe even the greatest. And that includes Leicester winning the league. But great days. And under him, every day was an interesting day. Let me put it this way: interesting. It wasn't always great, but it was very interesting because he could say something to you on a Monday, totally contradict himself on a Friday, and you'd believe both of them. So that's the type of character he was. But a wonderful football manager, and really, in footballing terms, an absolute genius.
And undoubtedly one of the legends of the game. From a managerial perspective, are there any managers plying their trade now that you would have loved to have worked under as a player?
I think that yes, of course, you tend now to look at managers who are very successful, and you feel as if how would you as a player have worked with them. And I think you're inclined to think that it would be all positive. You'd be hoping that would be the case. Pep Guardiola is obviously a terrific manager. He's proved that. He gets very, very good players to do the things that I assume he's proposing each day in training. It's interestingly. And I think he would say this, and so would Klopp, and so would all the managers. Jose, I think they would turn around and say to you, "It's not as complicated as people are trying to make it out these days. It's not. What you do is you get very, very good players. Recruitment is so big now at this moment. When you get very, very good players who can make a difference to your team, you get them into a style of play of which you like. You get the very, very best players on the ball as often as possible, the creative players." And you can make things happen. And not that I want to give away too many secrets, but at the end of it all, it's still relatively simple. There's a lot of buzzwords going around at this minute, but the better the player, probably the better the player you have, the better manager you're going to be.
And talking of better players, who was the best player that you played with during your time as a player?
Well, I played with a lot of very, very decent players. All the Nottingham Forest players were great, and I immediately go to that because of the success that we had, not just nationally but internationally. We had great success, and the fulcrum of the team. We had a fantastic goalkeeper in Peter Shilton. Also with Northern Ireland, I had a great goalkeeper in Pat Jennings. So I was spoiled in that sense. But if you're talking about outfield player being the fulcrum of the team, then John Robertson was an exceptional footballer. Little Scots lad, played wide left under Brian Clough, and for a couple of seasons, he was absolute scourge of not only the Premiership teams, but also of European defences as well too. And he was incredibly influential in our team. That's at that stage. Very, very good player. And I played, strange enough, I played with another really great player who went on to Manchester United in my early days, called Ian Storey-Moore. And Ian actually kept Nottingham Forest afloat, I think, for about 4 consecutive years himself, almost single-handedly. But I have to say that John Robertson, because of the success that we had, and I'm talking about the major successes, then John would be the most influential player that I played with. And
turning that on its head, who would be the toughest opponent that you faced as a player?
Wow, yeah. Well, there were plenty of those, no question about it. But when I started getting a grip of the game, and as success started to come to Nottingham Forest, then I felt that you could deal with most opponents. But in Manchester United, had a player called Brian Robson, who was a terrific footballer, box-to-box midfield player, strong, very, very brave, left-footed player, very influential. Wasn't the biggest talker in the world, I think, during the game, but he could be standing beside you for a second or two, and the next thing you know, he's left you. He's gone into the penalty box, and if he end up scoring a goal, and you were the one that was supposed to be picking him up or marking him from the start, I think you find yourself a bit of a clown or a bit of a fool. He was very, very strong and a good player. Obviously, the Liverpool players at that time, who I still consider never get the credit they deserve, they would be, to me, I think the Liverpool team that had Hansen, Dalglish, Souness, players like this here playing for them, and Rush, where they were fantastic footballers. And as I said to you, since the war, and I'm talking about since 1945, if you're considering any British team to be considered, Manchester United's treble in '99, all of these particular things, then that Liverpool side of the 70s could take its place with any side that you would want to talk about. And I believe that, given the pitches that they were playing on today, would have given anybody a game, and probably would have turned out more successful than most.
Fantastic, and we'll just wrap up with a few questions on traits and advice for being successful within sports. So you're obviously a very gifted footballer. Do you think there's a place for formal education as well as sporting knowledge to be successful within management?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I yes, I would turn around and say to you, it's almost essential now. And I think that the opportunities that one gets in today's footballing is remarkable, considering that we didn't. Even though I came from a sort of an educational background, in the sense that I went to university and studying, I was never able to combine both in that stage. The full-time professional football was something I wanted to do. I wanted to become a footballer, and therefore I had to leave that part of education away. Sometimes I do regret it in that sense. I never finished the law degree that I was studying at the time, but the opportunities are there now in abundance. And I do think it's vitally important for people to continue on education as much as they can possibly do. And as I said to you, the opportunities are there that did not exist, certainly in my time as a player. And thankfully, that is one great change that has taken place. And I notice now that football clubs in general are allowing their very young players to have a reasonable education now, and combining that there with their footballing talents. And so that's a big move in the right direction.
Fantastic. And what do you think are the main key traits that make someone a successful sports professional?
Well, naturally, talent for a start. I think that I think you need some sort of talent to be going on with. It's almost essential, but it doesn't mean that less talented people are likely to have lesser careers than those who have talent. You've got to combine the talent. I'm sure you've heard this umpteen times, so I'm not telling you something that is brand new, but you do really have to combine that talent with a bit of dedication, more than a bit of dedication. And I, throughout my time, both as a player and as a manager, I have seen ultra talented footballers not make the grade, or not do as well as they should have done. Maybe loitering around in the third and fourth division and things that you see, when they actually had the talent to go and play at a much higher level, simply because they did not have the dedication or the willpower or the determination to go on and carry those things through. And the opposite has definitely applied. Players that I thought wouldn't do it, wouldn't make it, and I've managed one or two that I thought that, yeah, I'm not so sure, but I felt that because they were so dedicated that they have a chance, even though they are much less gifted than other players, and it's because of that ultra determination that they had that saw them through to a decent career. I've seen that there, and I'm sure that will not change in the next century.
Fantastic. And just finally then, for our students who are looking to get into the business of sport, whether that's media, coaching, finance, law, for example, what would your one piece of advice be for them at the start of their careers now?
Well, that first of all, I think that's really an unfair question, I'm saying, and the nicest possible way, because I don't want to be giving out a plethora of platitudes and things that all young people would have heard before from older people. You've got to work hard, you've got to do this. It's different for individuals. There's some things that are just set in stone, and you have got to do some work. You've got to do some work. It will not come to you for a start. That's just set in stone. And listen, tell me, because occasionally as a young player, I think I might have sat around and think things will come to me. Absolutely not. They did not come to me. And there were moments in football, and certainly in my early career as a professional player, where I thought, this is just too much for me. Really too much. I might have to go back and do a law degree. And so you've got to do it. But somewhere along the way, the penny dropped. Maybe I found a little bit of determination within myself that maybe I didn't even think I had. Maybe I just got a little bit of luck along the way. I think a combination of a number of those things. Can't depend on luck for the rest of your life, I must admit. But a number of those things. And I think that whatever you do, don't get dispirited. That's easy to say, some things that happen, that there'll be a collection of circumstances that put you in a poor position, and some of those circumstances would have nothing to do with your talent at all. They're maybe just ill luck. So think about that, put that to the back of your mind and go again. Very easy for me to sit and say that there, trying to articulate for one or two little points for young people. Not at all, but I think they've got to have a bit of determination along the way, and know that there's going to be a few hurdles of which they're going to have to climb and get over if they're going to succeed.
Fantastic, really good advice, and it's been an absolute pleasure, Martin. Thank you so much for talking to me.
No problem, Ray. No problem. Thanks for asking me.